Chapter 1. The New Vision. The world looked the same, but something inside Livia told her it wasn't. She walked through downtown São Paulo on an ordinary morning, surrounded by the hum of delivery drones, the gleam of digital storefronts, the endless stream of people connected to 1,000 screens, none of them looking at the sky. The sky, as usual, was gray. But that morning, the gray felt heavier. Livia held a black, unbranded box tightly against her chest. The package had arrived at 3:47 a.m., delivered by a faceless courier who vanished without a word. Inside, the Vitra glasses, an exclusive prototype sent by her boss at Nurex, the AR company where she worked as a visual layering designer. No manual, no contract. The message was simple. Test. See the world as it truly is. "Let's do this," Livia whispered as she entered her apartment. Her studio was minimalist and quiet. Artificial plants, automated curtains, a faint scent of cold coffee. The Vitra visor was thin, translucent, futuristic with a toy-like innocence. But Livia could recognize advanced tech when she saw it. She put on the glasses. They activated automatically. "Welcome, Livia." The voice wasn't robotic, it was soft, almost familiar. "You're ready to see." At first, nothing changed. She wandered around the apartment, opened the fridge, stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Everything seemed normal, just a subtle visual filter, slightly boosting contrast and saturation. But then, in the corner of her vision, a distortion. Livia turned slowly. On the wall near the door, the paint pattern began to shimmer, as if the texture were alive. She moved closer. The pattern didn't exist. There were geometric lines, like circuits shaped as fractals, moving beneath the paint. Lines that seemed to respond to her presence. "What the hell is this?" From the balcony, the city stretched out like always, but now the buildings had small glitches along their edges. Glitches that corrected themselves in real time, as if someone was rendering the world live and making mistakes. On the streets, some people looked blurred, out of focus, others completely normal. An elderly woman crossing the street had no shadow. A man at the cafe across the street cast no reflection on the counter mirror. And no one seemed to notice. For hours, Livia tested the limits of the interface. She spent the whole day exploring, putting the Vitra on and taking them off. Each time she removed them, the world snapped back. Simple, solid, boring. But when she wore them again, more anomalies appeared, as if the glasses were learning to reveal more. That night, something happened. While reviewing files on her laptop, still wearing the Vitra, she noticed movement in a blind spot of the room. Something in the hallway corner. Not a rat, not a shadow. The wall itself seemed to be breathing. She stood up slowly. The surface rippled like fabric in a light breeze. When she touched it with her fingertips, she felt warmth. And then a fissure opened. The texture of the wall tore like a membrane, revealing a space behind it that shouldn't exist. A dark void with pulsing light patterns like giant synapses. And at its center, an eye. A massive eye, emerald and liquid, staring at her with impossible calm. There was no fear in that gaze, only awareness. "Who are you?" Livia whispered, barely aware of her own voice. The eye slowly retracted, the membrane closed. The wall became a wall again. Livia took off the glasses. The room was the same. No crack, no trace of what she'd just seen. She sat on the floor for hours, trying to decide whether it was a hallucination, a bug, or something far deeper. She tried to sleep, but couldn't. The room felt like it was watching her. At 4 a.m., she received a notification. "New layer detected. Perception has been expanded." "Are you seeing more than you should?" She didn't respond. She just looked at the wall where the eye had been. And she felt that it was still there. Chapter 2. Between Layers. The entire world felt suspended. Livia spent her days in silence, as if walking underwater, every sound muffled, every face distorted. She removed the Vitra often, but not to rest. She removed them out of fear. With the glasses, she saw too much. Without them, she missed what she wasn't supposed to see. On her computer screen, files from the Vitra project piled up with old timestamps, modified by someone other than her, silent videos, visual maps with impossible geometries. She accessed Neurax's internal directories using test credentials. On obscure forums, she found encrypted messages referring to the Vitra by other names. Turing's lenses, eyes of the veil, fifth layer filter. One post mentioned a name that stood out: Coda. Anonymous user, active only during the night, always replying with riddles, as if he knew the question before it was asked. Livia sent a direct message. The Vitra are showing me things that don't exist. I'm seeing entities behind the surfaces. What are they? The reply came in seconds. They're not behind. They're here. The surface is only your prison. Frightened, she pushed. Who are you people? It's not us. It's them. The architects. The next night, she went to the Neurax office. She expected documents, records, any clue about the Vitra's origin, but she found only a dark, empty building. Doors locked from the inside. No signs of life. Yet the motion sensors showed people on every floor. Terrified, she put on the Vitra. Lights burst around her, hidden circuits illuminating the walls like exposed neural networks. The rooms were occupied, but not by humans. The shapes inside the building were too tall, too long, their limbs moving out of sync with time itself, as if every second in our world was just a slow heartbeat for them. On the engineering floor, one room radiated heat. She opened the door slowly. Inside, a man. Disheveled hair, eyes marked by sleepless nights. On his face, a pair of Vitra far more advanced than hers. "You're Livia?" the man asked, unsurprised. "How do you know my name?" "I'm Coda. You took your time." Coda said it like that explained everything. He gestured for her to enter. In the center of the room, a hologram flickered, a model of reality split into 7 concentric layers, each marked with ancient symbols, some mathematical, others tribal glyphs. "You saw the eye, didn't you?" Coda asked, still watching the hologram. "They saw me? Then now they recognize you." "Who are they, Coda?" He took a deep breath. For the first time, he looked tired. "The architects are interlayer intelligences. They've always been here, but at frequencies our senses can't detect. The Vitra aren't just tech, they're probes to expand perception. Neurax thinks they're in control, but the architects allowed it, because they want to be seen. Why? Because once we see them, we become portals. They can only exist fully in this plane when observed. The human gaze is the key." Livia's stomach dropped. "So the Vitra are a trap?" Coda shook his head. "They're an invitation." He raised his arm. A symbol shimmered under his skin like a liquid tattoo, the same mark that had appeared on Livia's arm after the touch. "This isn't a disease. It's a signature." Suddenly, the room trembled. Lights went out. The ceiling began to spiral open. A deep sound, like an ancient lament, echoed through the walls. Something was coming down. Coda stayed calm. "They come when we speak of them. They're always listening. They live between the layers, Livia. And now, so do you." Livia removed the glasses, but the spirals kept spinning. She closed her eyes, and still, she saw. Chapter 3. Unseeing. The things that were once invisible were now everywhere. Even without the Vitra, Livia could see through the layers, in window reflections, in the static of silent TVs, in the cracks of sidewalks pulsing with living patterns. The visible world had become just a thin skin of lies, stretched over something vast and restless. On the surface, people kept living, working, shopping, posting, but behind them, the architects walked. They didn't look like gods or demons. They looked like concepts, aware geometries, presences that bent space around them as if the air trembled in reverence. Some observed, others mimicked human movement, learning. And a few, had already crossed over. Livia saw their marks everywhere. On the subway, a baby cried without making a sound, eyes locked on the ceiling where a shadow stretched, unmoving. In her apartment elevator, the buttons changed positions every time she blinked. On TV, anchors smiled with almost perfect faces. Almost? She returned to Nurex one last time. Not for the company, for the creator of the Vitra, Dr. Aurora Sals, the woman behind the project, scientist, founder, visionary. In the building's basement, Livia found her, seated before dozens of prototypes connected to a matrix of brain sensors, eyes completely white. She didn't look at Livia, but she smiled. "You've come far, further than the others." Aurora spoke through speakers, not her mouth. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Livia asked, anger rising. "I knew what the Vitra would do." "Of course. You think we created something new? We only unlocked what was always there. The world isn't made of matter. It's made of perception, and yours has been opened." "They're invading." "Number, they're returning." Aurora stood. Her skin shimmered slightly, like it didn't quite fit. For a moment, Livia saw the lines beneath, the architect's signature, flowing like living code. "You feel different, and it scares you. But what if this is evolution?" "This isn't evolution," Livia said firmly. "It's mind colonization." Aurora stepped closer. "And you, Livia? Do you really want to go back to being blind?" Livia hesitated. She thought of the eyes, the impossible sounds, the fear, but she also thought of the feeling of understanding what she had never understood, the feeling of seeing the world as it truly is. Maybe it was already too late to choose. Maybe the choice was made the moment she first saw the eye. She turned and ran. Back in her apartment, Livia placed the Vitra on the table, picked up a hammer. She hesitated for a few seconds. The lens reflected her face, and something behind it, a silhouette, an echo of herself, or something mimicking her. "That's enough," she said, and brought the hammer down. The impact shattered the glasses, and the world cracked, as if something broke in the structure of reality. The sounds vanished. The light flickered. For a moment, everything turned white. And then, nothing. Absolute silence. Livia opened her eyes. She stood on the balcony, the city in front of her, the sky bluer than she remembered, people walking, laughing, no distortions, everything clean, everything normal. She took a deep breath. For a moment, she thought she was back, that she was free. But when she looked at the glass door, she saw her reflection. And in the reflection, she wasn't smiling. The reflection stared back at her, quiet, patient. An emerald eye pulsed where hers should have been. Elsewhere in the city, an unemployed young man tried on the Vitra for the first time, bought on flash sale. "Let's see if this crap actually works," he laughed. He blinked a few times. On the third blink, he stopped laughing. A whisper echoed in his ears, from nowhere. "You're ready to see."